Good evening, guys. Hope y'all had a good Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
I did. I went
yeah,
camping.
you almost got lit on fire from someone's gender reveal party.
Yeah,
Sounds like
basically.
fun. I was I was kind of thinking of the irony of like my job is mostly sitting down in video calls and taking notes all day, and
Hmm.
then one of my leisure activities is sitting down in a video call.
Yeah, but video calls are the new normal. This is like how you interact with people. It's just like
It
you're,
feels
I
so
I
exhausting
rarely
compared to
get on
like in
video
person.
calls. I'm sorry.
The fatigue's real.
you just gotta get in a relaxing position. Do you see how relaxed I look right now?
Bro, I can't do that in front of like my boss is like, Alan, what are you doing? I'm taking notes, don't worry. Like no
That's why your
chance.
leisure activities like right now, right? Like you gotta be, relaxing.
Yeah, now it's relaxing.
Hmm.
So today's topic is money. And what does money mean to you? And I thought about this because I'd pushed this topic back a few times, the choice of this topic. And then when Ozzy asked this final time a few hours ago, I still hadn't had anything. But I think I was balancing my budget or something. So I was like, let's talk about money. And I think it makes sense the more I thought about it, because I feel like we always think about it. It's like every day, virtually every day, you're thinking about money, right? In some way, you're like, oh, do I want this? Am I gonna buy this? Did I pay my rent, etc. And
Do I
and I
pay
feel
my
like
rent?
even though, right, yeah, like even though most of us use it
Daily
for pretty,
questions.
right?
Do I pay it
Like,
today? Next week? Maybe next year?
Wake
I
up,
mean, we all
brush your
use it
teeth, pay your rent, put
for
your
Pay my
clothes
some.
on.
rent.
Oh God.
Hey, I'm just saying, money makes the world run, right? And right, it's the center of capitalism, which is the worst system, except all the other ones. So I mean, I don't know. I just feel like money. We all use it in very similar ways to live, to stay alive, for luxuries, for experiences. But I think emotionally, it means quite different things to most of us, based on our upbringing. Um, so yeah, wanted to talk about that. So on that note, I'll start. I think I was raised very much like money is a source of like achievement, right? Like, and my parents would always go around like pointing out like, oh, look at that guy, he made it, he's making an X amount of money a year, right? Or they'd look at like someone else and be like, oh, if you don't work hard, you're gonna end up only making this much money a year, right? And I say it's very much like an achievement and less of like a, oh, we wanted to buy more stuff, because like as they've increased like their perception of achievement financially, they've not really elevated their standard of living significantly with it, right? So like over the course of my life, like um my parents like standard of living has gone up maybe like 20 to 50%, which has not kept pace at all with like 2 decades of their career growth, right? So for them, and then which they impressed on me, it was very much like how are you doing in life? And if you're not making the big bucks, and if someone is, then you're not doing as well. And I think that played a lot into like the prestige of like jobs like law, like medicine, right? Like my parents always talk about like some random cousins out there who work in hedge funds making like seven figures and stuff. Um, yeah, and I think especially growing up around that, and then you have to like kind of reinforce to yourself like, oh, it's obviously not the only measure of achievement in life. It's like hard to dissociate, right? I think for me, it's like it still is very much that, right? Like if I get to a certain point in my life and I'm not hitting a number that I want, I will kind of feel like I'm not achieving enough, even though rationally I know that's not the case. Um, and then I also feel like critically, it's a source of food money. I like spending money on food mostly. So you look in your bank account, you're like, all right, I can buy like 200, beefy Frito burritos. I think especially like as you go through like high school and college, you kind of do measure your bank account by like how many meals this is going to carry me, how many like rounds of groceries is going to take me. So I don't know. I think that's like, I know security is a big part of it too, but I guess I'm privileged enough to be in a place in my life where like I know if I get homeless and totally broke and like I get into huge amounts of medical debt, I know my parents will probably be able to back me up. So I think it's less security and more achievement in food. That makes sense. Melis, I saw you nodding about the food.
I was nodding about the food too.
I like how you measure your dollars in beefy burrito
Bean
burritos.
burritos, baby.
So y'all saw me cancel that, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. They still have McChickens.
No, yeah, but the beefy Frio burrito is no longer on the Taco Bell menu.
Wait, are
Yeah.
you serious?
It's
No, I'm
not.
serious. Yeah, they're
Oh my
streamlining the
God.
menu, and
That's
they took out lots of
crazy.
fan favorite. Yeah, it's horrible.
What a travesty.
I mean, good thing I haven't been
Actually.
there in a while. I guess I'll never go there again.
Yeah, so sad. Found out from my sister. I
She's someone of culture.
don't know. What do you guys think? Like, how did you guys' cultures or parents influence how you see money?
I'll
or how
go.
it interacts with your daily life?
I think
is
my
good.
parents kind of had a somewhat more enlightened view compared to a lot of people. I think they were like, so something that they've always taught me growing up is that if you can buy happiness with money, then do it immediately, because chances are those opportunities are rare. And I think going through life, it's something that, at least for me, I think life seems to fit that pattern, where it's truly rare when you can spend money and turn it directly into happiness. And like, yeah, sure, I can buy stuff, and capitalist society tries to make you believe that buying stuff automatically equates to happiness, but I don't really buy into that per se. Because I've bought stuff and then I'm like, oh, look, this shiny thing, did it make me happier? Not really. So I'm generally happy to spend money to like travel and to spend it on experiences, because I think that gets closer to the concept of buying happiness for yourself. But I'm also mindful, like, yeah, I could get absolutely wrecked by medical debt right now in a way that nobody would be able to bail me out. And like, so to some extent, money it loses its relevance to me, because I know that I really can't use it to buy the things I want in life. So I think what I've said is almost a little bit like opposite to what Alan has said.
So on that note of like money not being able to buy what I want in life, I echo that sentiment, but for I think a slightly different reason. Growing up, I would say that finances or like allowances or whatnot spending from me and my brother, I think was at our family. I always like to joke that just run like a communist regime, or like the allowance was kind of like a joke. It was like, yeah, here's like $5 a month, but anything you want to buy, you must be approved by us. And if it's not approved, you can't buy it. It's like, okay, well, but guess what? If it is approved, guess who has to pay for it? I do. So it's just kind of, but now, like, you know, and when I complained at first, they're like, who's giving you
What
the
a
money?
shitty end of a deal.
Like, who's giving you the
Yeah,
money?
like
You don't.
you're
You don't
spending
have
on
the right to
groceries this
complain.
month.
Yeah. It's like, you know, you don't get to decide this, right? And so what that developed to me was just the same thing that David said, right? It was like, money can't buy the things I want. Like that, like literally, like even if I have the money, that's not what ultimately decides whether or not I buy it, right? So I kind of distance myself from money in the sense that I was always told, like, if it's a meaningful purchase that is reasonable, we're well off enough to buy it. And I mean, my parents have been working hard, like, to, you know, achieve that financial security. But for me, I was always too lazy to try and make a case to buy like a cake or something, right? It's kind of like there is no good reason, really. Like, there's no way I'm going to convince them. So it's just kind of like, and I can't spend my allowance unless I have to convince them. So it's kind of like, yeah. So it's really, it just became unimportant to me because it really, how much money I had under my name really didn't determine much as far as my purchasing power goes, right? So yeah, like that's so like it's like life goals. It's the money's kind of in the backdrop in the sense, kind of like Alan was saying about security. Like I personally have confidence that the type of careers that I'm pursuing will supply me with enough financial security to where, I mean, I don't think I'm a big spender. Like the things that I will want to spend money on, like I think I'll have enough as long as I kind of just stick on the track, right? So it's really more about like, you know, do I feel like I've accomplished much in my career? So like to Alan's example about the distant cousins working in the hedge funds, right? Like for me, the question is not so much, is it a 7-figure salary? Is it a 6-figure salary? Is it an 8-figure salary? It's more like, okay, well, am I the boss or am I just working for someone? You know, if I'm working for someone, you pay me 9 figures, I'll be like, bro, why the fuck am I working this job? I should just start my own thing. Like, am I such a beta that I can't do anything with 9 figures to actually
You're
make a career for
insane,
myself?
dude.
Right, you know?
Such a beta.
Dude, I'll be a beta. I was thinking I'd be a beta taco maker for enough money. I don't care. Dude, yell at me all you want. Just pay me $1 million at the end of my salsa making shift.
Yeah, so to me, like that's just unacceptable, right? Like it's just kind of like, look, if I can make that much money, I got to be able to do something. Like it's not just money based, because again, like it's comes from my upbringing, right? Like money is just not the thing that I care about, right? It's more about just like doing shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned, I don't know, being a beta or like being controlled by somebody else in the same breath, same story as, you know, your parents controlling you. I don't want to say like, I don't want to be like psychoanalyzing or anything like that. It's just interesting that you sort of mentioned them, and like, you know, you bookended this whole story with those two things, right? Like,
Well, I mean, I think it seems
agency and independence for
Yeah.
yourself, right? Like it seems like that's something that you really value, and that money can't really put a price on.
I see why you made that connection.
I thought that was the point of the story too.
Well,
You know, bring it full circle, right? I don't know.
Yeah, right?
okay, maybe I wasn't trying to be poetic or anything, but like
He's a poet and he didn't even know it.
it's the main thing is for me that like I think those, I don't think there's I never thought of being like, you know, brought up by my parents as being
No, a beta. No, that's a
It's
terrible
more
word.
like-
Absolutely not. I don't
like-
want to, that's why I changed the phrasing to like just like
Wait,
having a sense
wait,
of
you mean
belonging.
like you don't think you're your parents' bitch? Because I'm my parents' bitch.
I just think that's an inappropriate way to think about it. Absolutely, that's
Wait,
But, like,
why?
I don't think
Wait.
about it that way. Like
How? You guys
like-
don't listen to your parents?
well,
Like, honestly, you're your
listening to
parents'
your-
beta. I don't know what you're talking
No,
about.
I'll admit it. I'll
Yeah,
gladly
for
admit
sure,
it.
right?
I'm
I think
saying
that's
for Kevin-
common.
I'm saying for Kevin in this conversation, I don't think that was the appropriate, you know, phrasing of it, right? So
Oh my God.
And I think it's about achieving this sense of, you know, agency and independence and control over his own destiny, right? And so that's sort of, I don't know, that was the similarity that I drew. But yes,
Dude, Kevin's just out to become a Chad Alpha, dude. That's all I heard. It was like I was under the thumb of my parents' $5 fake allowance. No more. Not for all the bushels of bananas they'll make me buy in the world.
I mean, I was just saying, like the point of like the whole 9 figures, right? Like it's kind of like at some point, you know, 9 figures is already much too far in the extreme in my view. Like past a certain point, I think you have enough to get a pretty good standard of living by like most, you know, standards, right? It's kind of like it's time to move beyond this whole thing, like how big can the number go? Because you can always add more zeros at the end. I mean, like, but what difference does it make? Just move to like, what was it, Zimbabwe, right? The hyperinflation state, right? You can have so many zeros at the end of your bank account. It doesn't mean anything because like it literally just doesn't mean anything. Like this might be like I'm sure this isn't unique to like Chinese culture, but like historically that they always measured a person's kind of value in 2 dimensions. One is the wealth they've accumulated, and the other is the political power they've accumulated, right? And the general wisdom there is that wealth doesn't equate to political power, but political power equates to wealth. Sounds like a very corrupt state, doesn't it? But like, I think there's some I guess, wisdom to that, right? So for me, it doesn't have to be political power necessarily, but that's why when I describe that job as like, even if I'm making 9 figures, if ultimately I'm just working as someone's lackey, if I respect this person, right, I think they're out to achieve great things and I'm kind of part of that, that's okay for me. But if it's just kind of like a money job, then it's kind of like, gosh, surely even with just the salary they're paying me, I can do something better, right? That's kind of my aspiration.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've also heard a similar phrase that's like, money can't buy class, right? Like the idea of like your sophistication or your social standing is not tied to your wealth. But then I've also heard that that's just an idea used by old money families to continue to be elitist about people who've come from poor upbringings. So I don't know how I feel about that phrase either.
I don't think it's class.
Yeah, it sounded like more as like having influence. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin.
No,
Sounds
no,
like-
I know. Yeah, for Kevin's phrase, I was
Yeah.
saying for another one. All right, what about y'all? What else y'all got? Osman, money, no issue. Hit me with your thoughts. You know it was coming here. You knew it from the start. I almost renamed you in the chat to it.
What?
Yeah,
The man.
I'd like to pass for now, if that's okay. I'd still like to. I don't know. I feel like my thoughts are not cogently formulated, so I'm gonna need a little bit.
Wait, what was that word you just used?
Cogent.
Cogently.
It's the word taught to those of high wealth.
Uh,
I think
He
it
wouldn't
basically-
understand it.
I think
That's-
it basically means coherent, but
No, it
They-
means
they-
thoughtful.
Coherent? What coherent means?
wait, what
Why
does it
use
mean,
big
David?
word?
I think David was about it.
You said
Code-
thoughtful.
Cogent
You said
means thoughtful,
Okay.
not
Come
coherent.
on,
Cogent
Ozzy. Don't be dropping
means
big words if you're not
clear
gonna
Why
logic.
use
right.
many words when few words do
Cogent-
trick?
Cogent,
Yeah, why use many
Hey.
words when a few words do trick?
Hey, cogent means clear, logical, and convincing. That's what it means according to Google. So
Ocean, fish,
That's-
jump,
yeah.
China.
So it sounds like you were both right.
Shut up, Alan.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I can't wait to hear the man who $1 billion means nothing to's opinion on money.
Right, Melis.
Wait, what?
What?
No.
All right, Mel, hit us with it.
All right, I guess I'll go. Unless Uche wants
Tell
to go.
us your cogent thoughts.
No, I'm not going.
All right. Let's see. Well, for me, money is all about the security. I grew up on the lower income side of the spectrum, so definitely, like, I don't know, parents raised me to, of course, get a good education that leads to a good job, and that leads to, financial security. So that's always been in my head, and I'd say like it's kind of influenced how I carry myself. Some people would call me cheap. I like to say I am frugal. Frugal. Okay. Very frugal with everything I do. I don't know what else really to say, but I guess for me, like, I know one thing that's, I think that I have kind of a different opinion than a lot of people. I think I've spoken with some of you, or, some people from Rice, where some of y'all mentioned that, you kind of miss being at Rice, kind of miss that student life. And I'm like, nah, I like making money.
That's true. You did say that.
I don't blame you.
Nah.
I like.
Yeah, I like.
But if
I
you
like,
could have that student life while making money, that's the dream, right?
True.
like,
All right.
you're-
Fair enough.
True.
You're loading up
Absolutely.
on as much
Absolutely.
fast food as you want every day.
Absolutely. Oh my god. Yo, just walk into the server, you just swipe, get some
Oh
food.
man.
Abdullah.
Dude, Abdul, insane. Abdul
Oh,
is insane.
God.
Oh,
Mels, I've thought about that, like what you're saying, and like, I feel like a lot of the opportunity I would have wanted to spend my money, like going on trips and stuff, or like going to like nice dinners with friends or bars and stuff. Like, I didn't have the money at the time. And now that I do, I don't really have like as much opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh shit, might as well buy some index funds because I ain't going out to the bar.
This is why you need a bank to give loans to college students so they can go on trips.
Exactly.
No, they can get the money themselves. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm, in terms of like career goals, I mean, I'm more on the side of, if the job, I like to follow the money. If the job is paying more, and as long as it's not gonna like bore me, I'm taking it. That's why
it can bore you a certain amount.
Huh?
It can bore you a certain amount for the right amount, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not like if you're in Kevin's situation, you had to be someone's beta bitch. You had no personal fulfillment, but they're paying you fat stacks.
Yeah,
you can make it work, right?
I'm taking
that's what I'm saying. But
that's why I switched jobs so quickly, and I do it again. Like
I
would do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
If your old job calls you back, it's like I would pay you 10% more. Oh, I'm coming back. Is that what you're saying?
Well, when I first started at Coke, like my plan was, okay, if I'm not gonna get permanent and make more within a year, I'm leaving. That's it. And even then, like to this day, every day I'm checking LinkedIn and Indeed looking for a job that is going to pay. I'm not joking. I'm pretty sure the most used app on my phone is LinkedIn. Like
nice.
Yo, you got that LinkedIn premium?
I don't have the premium. I just send I send a connection to people with the note.
With the note,
you can write a little message in there.
Yo, you can use Google search to get past. You know how it locks you after too many searches? Without LinkedIn Premium, you can use Google to advanced search on LinkedIn.
Oh,
and it's probably a better search anyways.
Exactly, yeah.
I didn't know that. All right, I'm gonna start doing that.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I feel like everyone has that attitude because I feel like everyone knows. Oh, if your company needed to slash cost by 10%, they cut your ass without even thinking.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like if you can get a bump, like why have any more loyalty than they would give you?
Exactly. And I especially learned that like after I think some of y'all, I don't know if some of y'all remember, but Coke laid us all off. Like, I mean, I had until like December of that year. Okay, I left Coke in like August of 2019, I think. No, 2018. No, 2019. And that December, I would have gotten laid off. And so it shows you, wait, okay, clearly they're not looking out for us. I got to look out for me. So, I'm gonna value the place that, I'm gonna quote Dwight from The Office. Okay. Now, loyalty is important to me, but the company that values the most loyalty is going to show me that in money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm going to the place that values loyalty the most.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely align with what you're saying because I find like, yeah, it would be great if you could find fulfillment from work, but I mean, I can get fulfillment somewhere else because I see work primarily as an income generating activity, and so it's like, got enough time to do something somewhere else, do that.
Yeah, and I definitely, I mean, there may be like, there's definitely a point to where, I think I take like a very smaller amount of pay. Like, I mean, if my pay was only a little bit decreased for more fulfillment, I'll go for it. But there's only so much of a pay cut I'll take.
Yeah, I saw a great question someone posed the other day on Fishbowl, and they were saying, would you keep your current salary for your dream job, for like the perfect job for you, or would you go to another job that you don't know if is going to be good for a 50K bump? And all the so most people were saying 50K bump, and then someone said, if your dreams are only worth 50K for you, then you got to get bigger dreams. I was like, oh shit, I felt personal.
Dreams change, right? People have dreams.
And
it's not always going to be the same.
People have
50K is always worth the same.
Exactly. But like every dream I have is worth 50K, bro.
Yeah, they move your ass to Zimbabwe. You get 50K extra Zimbabwe dollars.
That'd be toxic.
Yo, what if my dream? What's my dream? Oh no, you
Well,
said
your dream job
you
was
said
to
you
make
keep-
50K more.
You're right. Yeah, that is my dream job.
And what if it was 49K? You exceeding your expectations, dude. That'd be crazy.
I mean, it
Looks
really
like-
does depend on how much you already make, right? That 50K, right? It's all about the
Yeah, for
marginal
sure.
value.
That's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
So like,
You're going from
you
500 to 550, like way different than 50 to 100, right?
exactly right. So like, the question is just designed to have different answers. Just kind of where you are now versus, where you anticipate you will be at your dream job, right?
What you got, Uche?
Money. I mean, my initial like thoughts of money from what my parents, I don't know, taught me was that money was there to provide security for my family. And like moving definitely showed us that like you can't have education or like you can't have a lot of things without like having financial security. So like going through a struggle of like not having money definitely like made us think more about that. So as I grew up in America, I was like, okay, so I'm gonna be going to school, doing all of this just so I can have financial security for me, my family, people who I care about. But after like, I guess like after like I had that like period of thought, I started thinking of money as like, I don't need, there's like a minimum, there's a maximum, no, there's a minimum amount of money that I can live off of and still be happy. Like I didn't equate like money to happiness. So in my mind, I was like, if I had X and X amount of money, I could care less about how much I make past that, right? So like for me right now in my current situation, I make enough money to be happy. So like if I made more, it'd be more for like other people's benefits than mine, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I mean, I still want to make more money so I can help other people, like my family, relatives, whoever it is. But for me right now, I make plenty of money. I can pay my rent. I can pay my. I make enough money to pay my rent, bills, or whatever. I also have plenty of money for food, which is great. I've never had this much money for food, so that's actually a good thing. Like I can literally just go on Amazon with my credit card, of course, and just buy whatever, and just pay it off later because I'm making the money to pay it off. Big brain.
It's a weird feeling to like. Did you guys ever get to like? I remember in high school, I always paid with things in cash, and I felt like every time I spent any amount of money, I would do the exact mental math, and I would know exactly how much money was left in my wallet because there was just not enough, right? So you would know exactly how you were partitioning your money,
Yeah.
And now you go and get those $3 banh mi's. You're like, fuck it, I'll buy 4 of them. You don't even think about how much it costs.
What? I mean, yeah, sure. I don't think
Wait,
about
hold on.
like.
Yeah, if it's $3, of course,
Of course
that's
you
a
get
steal.
4. But if it was like an expensive meal, then I'd be like, oh, how much is that going to cost me? Like,
Yeah.
Look at the bank account afterwards. Like, oof.
And then
shouldn't
I
have made
walk
that
out the
decision.
restaurant and go to a different one.
Wow. That's what Melis would do.
For
That's
me,
what-
if I had to spend money in high school, I wouldn't be thinking about how much I spent. I'd be thinking about my story for when I got home.
He's like, wait, where'd the money go, Kevin? Where'd your $5 allowance
There's
go,
a good
Kevin?
reason for this. There's a good reason.
Kevin, you
for
spent
this.
$3.57 at the gas station. What'd you buy there?
Gas.
No, like actually.
We didn't
actually,
approve
no, like
this.
actually, right? And if I said gum, it's like, why'd you buy gum? Like,
why would
what-
gum
like-
cost $3.55, Kevin? What else did you buy?
Exactly. Are you stupid? Like, why'd you buy the gum?
Are you stupid?
Like, I did not see the purchase request form on my desk this morning, Kevin.
like, literally, like. So for me, it's just such a big hassle. Like that the amount of money in my wallet just never changes. It's just kind of like, yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. I know all of us come from like immigrant families too. and like I know the way my parents see money, like I know a way that they really highly value it, or they see it as like very virtuous, is money as sacrifice, right? So to them, like one of the worst things you can do is spend a lot of money on yourself without, you know, giving to others, right? Not They don't really put a premium, I think, on charity, but like I think within their social network, they're like, oh, pick up the tab for meals, like, you know, give people gifts, things like that, because they're like, I don't know, I think they put a lot of value on making like some sort of financial sacrifice for others, right? So for like my sister and I, right, like certainly thinking about the financial sacrifices they made for us is like a big reason I never argue with them anymore, right? Like no matter how wrong I think they are, like Rice tuition is just somewhere in the back of my head, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna shut up. I don't know. You guys ever think, like, your parents ever talk to you about, like, I don't know, money in that sense?
That that's some filial piety you're demonstrating there. For me, it's kind of like, look, you raising me is something I will always be grateful for. But you know, if we're talking about this particular issue, we talk about this particular issue. If you're right, you're right. You're wrong, you're wrong. You can't bring kind of all those old things in, because then we'll never have a real conversation, right? Right? Like you kind of feel forced to shut up because it's gonna, but you know, I don't think that's, you know, constructive.
Yeah, I think intellectually, I think that's true, right? But if my mom, I don't know, like I was playing tennis with Frank when I was last at their house, right? Me and Frank are like 30 feet apart the whole time because we're playing tennis on an open tennis field, right? Or like, you know, and then we're, you know, and my mom's like, you're gonna get COVID, and I'm staying with them, right? And I'm like, Mom, I'm not gonna get COVID. You know, we're like 30 feet apart, it's open air. There's like not a single chance in hell where I'm getting COVID from him. And he had just tested negative too. Like he had gotten his test results like a day ago.
He licks the
Right.
tennis ball and he serves.
Right. So like we talked about this for a while, and it got to a point where I knew I knew it wasn't like super reasonable, and I was still like, you know, I'm just gonna drop it. It's fine. You know, like it is what it is.
Because I mean, it's a level of
So,
like, how do you show your gratitude, right? Like Kevin says,
yeah.
he's very grateful for what his parents have done, but like, you know, I mean, I guess the point of your story is that it would have been ungrateful for you to like to really push this any further. I mean, with like something like, I don't know, your Rice tuition in the back of your head, right? So, you know, I mean, yeah, there are specific arguments and debates that are had, but I can see how that can weigh on your mind. Yeah, it weighs on my mind.
What
all
weighs
the
on your
time.
mind, Ozzy?
What weighs on my mind? Yeah, I mean, a lot of everything that everyone has said so far, I feel like resonates with me and my experience with money. So, I mean, what you said just now with like your parents weighing on your mind, that weighs on my mind a lot. I mean, they provided so much for me. I feel like just like the sense of abundance, I feel like that everything's taken care of. And I just, I don't know, it makes me like sometimes it makes me feel dirty, just like how like just like I'm living in an apartment that my parents purchased, and I don't need to worry about it. I didn't need to worry about Rice. Like I don't know, like you could use the word spoiled, I think, like just but you know, sometimes the word spoiled makes me think like, is that the right word to be using? I don't know. So yeah, sometimes I feel like sometimes money feels really dirty to me, because like just it's like, you know, other people, they struggle so much with having enough money, but then like, what did I do to deserve all this? So that weighs on my mind a lot. Something else that was mentioned earlier, Melis mentioned something about being frugal, and that's something that I think should like, it should cross like wealth and class lines. Like just because you have like very little money, or if you have very much money, like I still think it's good practice to be frugal and not be excessive, right? Because I think being frugal and economical is not about the amount of money you have. It's about just like a general mindset, right? That like, you know, yeah, you shouldn't go out and like whatever. Like some people, you know, some people, whenever they have enough money, they go out and like buy a boat and they suddenly lose all their wealth, or they go gambling or something like that.
I hate when that happens. Every time I get a paycheck, I just buy a new boat, lose
I don't know.
everything.
Maybe I mean, I don't know why that. I don't know why that came to mind, but just like
No, you're right.
some rich people, like they throw away all their money just by like these ridiculous, exorbitant expenditures. And you know, I mean, like, it's
No,
one thing
people
that
in all spectrums definitely waste. I've seen it.
Yeah.
People, you know,
Yeah.
lower income people, income people.
Yeah. Um,
I waste money on food every day.
Wasted on food.
It's a shame.
Waste. You're eating it.
Yeah, I'm
see,
eating
food-
too much
The
of it.
best thing
Food
you
is
could
something that
spend
I
your
value,
money on is
so-
food.
Yeah.
I value
So-
my money. Oh, never mind. Go for it.
Have I told you guys I might have ripped this off somewhere, but have I told you guys my theory that a boat is expensive no matter how wealthy you are? And that I think it's because
You're always
if
going to look
if
for a bigger boat.
exactly, you're always gonna buy the boat that matches your income
Yeah,
level, right?
exactly.
So if you're a billionaire, you're buying that $200 million
Fucking $1 million boat, dude.
yeah, it costs $20 million a year to maintain and fuel and crew costs. And you know, if you're at the if you can barely buy a boat, you're also stretching it because you gotta pay the cost to store it, to fix it, to maintain it and shit, drag it out to the lake. A boat is never a good purchase, guys. Never do it. Never do it.
That's funny.
It's like that for a lot of luxury goods, right? Like it's not about the good, it's about the amount of wealth it represents, right? Like for some people, like they need that status recognition, right? And this is kind of just part of the picture.
The boat is the ultimate sign that you're willing to just take money and burn it on fire.
Yeah,
It's
it's like, how do I get people to know that I'm making 9 figures? Well, it's kind of lame to just go around showing them 9 figures, right? So why don't I just buy this big ass boat? It's like, yeah, if you're in the know, you know this costs 9 figures, right? And only the other people who make 9 figures would know, right? All the other scrubs, they won't even know how much this costs. Like,
And they'll
some people
hate
are
you
just
for
like conceited like that, right? I feel, right? Like that's why they make expenditures like that.
So
Yeah.
what are you guys' thoughts
Well-
on when people have conversations about money, I feel like it's taboo to ask someone specifically how much they make.
Yeah.
And I guess, why do we think that's taboo? Should it be taboo? Is it would things be better if we were more public and willing to disclose that sort of information? Like, what sort of mindsets do you think this leads to?
So I'll start off. I think so. I'll say this. In terms of like talking with a lot of younger people in my community, like in my church and like in my Ethiopian community, I will tell them, because I'm trying to be kind of a mentor and trying to show them like the benefits of getting a good education and having good economic and I guess financial discipline, because that's something that's not seen very often in our community, especially because a lot of us, our parents just came over from Ethiopia, and some of them weren't lucky enough to get a great education and be able to have and some of them don't really understand a lot of the different financial systems and terminology of how things go in America, so they don't have that level of financial stability. So when I'm that person that's had an opportunity to get that and make a good career and be able to make those good decisions, I want to show these younger kids who don't have so much direction, and I want to tell them that to get them excited about it, because a lot of I'll say a lot of the younger guys, especially, so focused on spending so many hours playing Fortnite or video games or some crap. I'm like, listen, y'all, listen. Listen, y'all need to be focusing on the important stuff. You see, and I'll tell them I'm making
Overwatch.
this, and I'll tell them I'm making this much, okay, and y'all can make this much too, but you got to put in this work to do it. And it's kind of an easy way to tell them what the payoff is, because I feel like a lot of them kind of will slack off, man, I don't want to do this homework, what's the point? A lot of them will be like, what's the point of all this? Some students ask me, oh, how important is GPA, why am I taking this class, am I ever going to use this in the future, blah blah blah. So in terms of that aspect and like sharing that information to like help bring people up, I think it's important, like as a source of like, I guess, inspiration.
Dude, Melis, that's awesome, man.
That's
Like,
really,
that's
really
actually
great.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you're the guy that all the Ethiopian aunties and uncles talk about. They're like, yo,
All the
Melis,
aunties.
that's what happens when you, yo, look at Melis. That like,
Look at this man.
Melis,
This is the man I want
Melis,
you to
dude,
become.
your Asian equivalent in my community, we hated you, dude. Like, every time we fucked up. Melis, look what Melis is doing, dude. I bet Melis's ass wouldn't be playing video games right now. He'd be
Oh my
studying,
God,
going to
yeah.
Rice and shit.
God,
We hated you, bro.
bro,
Ugh.
that's funny because I was having a talk with my like one of my best friends. He's just like a year younger than me, like a couple months ago, and he was telling me that how like his mom would always be like, "Yeah, hey, look what Melis is doing.
Look what Melis is doing.
Dude, I knew it, dude. That's
Oh
a
my
classic
God.
telltale sign, dude. Like I bet all these parents are calling you like, talk to my son. He's out of control. We don't know what. They call you and they're like, what do you want me to say? They're like, tell them your secrets. Tell them your secrets.
100%, bro. 100%.
Oh man.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God, this is so real.
I was gonna answer Osmond's question about like the reason that I think people there's like a negative like light on asking how much people make is because those who don't make enough get upset because when they were growing up they were misinformed. They didn't have the information that could help them achieve success or achieve financial freedom or like financial success. So when they hear that other people who had that information or had the resources to get there are just well off, it's like they feel like they were betrayed or they were like they weren't in the position or had the opportunities to like get there. That's what I think. That's why I feel like people don't like people hate talking about it or people have like a negative like thought about asking people how much they make.
That's a good point. I just, but like using Melis's example, like wouldn't it make sense then to open this conversation?
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
start it off with, talking about how much everybody makes. I mean, as like sort of the starting point for a conversation like that, where, you can inform people on.
Yeah, I was just saying that's
that's
probably
the-
one of the main reasons why people get upset about it.
I can see
Yeah.
It's not like,
And
I think
Osmond,
talking about it.
to your like suggestion, right? I think even then there's a high potential for pain where if you actually compare two people who walk very similar paths, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one's making double the other, right? Like they went through the same schooling, right? Like similar, like, and then it's just like one guy, we can't really explain exactly why, right? But let's say he just landed a job at the iBank that they both were gunning for. The other guy didn't make it. It's kind of like there's no discernible difference on paper, right? One guy is just going to be salty and feel like they're getting judged, right? And I think that's the kind of situation that you might be broadly alluding to. And so I think the taboo that you're talking about is kind of an artifact of unfamiliarity between people, right? Because the conversations that, why is it, I think it's a general taboo that you might be sensing is because generally when you're with like, people you're not super close with and maybe a more public setting, right? Where, you might hear people who don't know any of these people might hear about it, right? People are a lot more defensive and worried about getting judged. Whereas I think, if you're among a close group of friends, whether it's taboo or not really just depends on kind of your group dynamic, right? Like I can totally imagine like any of us potentially, being comfortable enough to talk about it, right? It would like, I don't think it's like a taboo necessarily at that point. It's more just kind of like, are you guys like, that is that how your relationship works?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree within like once we stop recording, I'm down to talk openly about it. But like, because I think to Ozzy's point, like it's like two things in my head, beyond like your social dynamics. I think it's like culturally, I think in America especially, but in every like capitalistic society, we don't measure our success in like our relationships or our community power, like I feel like we used to, or our network, or how many lives we've touched. I feel like obviously many of us too, but I think culturally the one universal that everyone can look at in terms of success is, what's going into that guy's bank account every month, right? And I think culturally we've just been like taught and conditioned that your self-worth is inherently tied to how much money you make, right? And obviously that's different when you go in the nonprofit space or whatever, but right, like if you go in as a wage earner, people are just kind of naturally more impressed by you, or think you're worth more, right? When you have bigger numbers assigned to you, and they're just numbers, right? But we were taught that way, and so naturally, if bigger numbers mean you're worth more, when you know that you're making smaller numbers as someone else, you kind of feel like lesser than, even though it's like totally irrational, right? Because like who's to say, like a teacher who's not making as much as like an iBanker, who's to say that they're less successful? Their field just is inherently not as well paying, right? But there's kind of a mindset we have that's like, oh, because they can buy these like boats and shit, they're worth more as people. And I think
Right.
that's one thing, right? Like we're just pretty materialistic in status. Our status is based around money, not necessarily class or community. And I think the second thing is it really benefits corporations that we don't talk about money. Like, right, the more all of us talk to each other, the more transparency is, the more Glassdoor is widely used and currently updated, the more power workers have to bargain against corporations, right? Because they know their market value. So, like, I had two coworkers recently, and they were
That's a face to freeze on. That's for sure.
That
That is a face to
Same,
freeze
right?
on.
Right.
Alan,
No,
you
I was.
kind of skipped out there. I don't know. If
Oh,
you,
sorry.
no,
Sorry.
yeah.
What where did I drop off? Like the coworkers thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the coworkers were kind of like dancing on the subject, like, oh, are they paying me? I was like, dude, let's just say it. Let's just say how much we have, because the only person it benefits, like if we can hold it within our egos to not be butthurt by our varying levels of income, the only
Yeah.
person it benefits for us not to be transparent is our employer.
The man.
Right. Right. Exactly. Right. So, I think, yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think it would be better for workers and people overall if we could be more transparent. But I think before we can necessarily do that, like, obviously it's better for like us as workers for bargaining power. But I'm saying, I think if it would be better for us, like psychologically, I think we need to overcome a lot of like cultural weight around the value of money and your earning potential. Right. It's not going to come from like, oh, we're open about it, we're tight, and now we know. Right. From now on, you're kind of always going to look at a certain person like,
The
oh,
number on their
this
head.
guy, like, yeah, exactly, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
next
like
time
a
you all go
number
out to
on their
dinner,
head.
yeah, like, dude, next time you
Yeah.
all go out for drinks, you're like, this motherfucker's making $500,000. Why didn't you pick up drinks? The fuck is this?
Well, yeah,
So, and I
so
think-
that's kind of what I was talking about with like the group dynamic, right? Like, I guess you laid it out in a much more explicit manner, right? Which is kind of like there's some cultural elements that kind of need to be different kind of within your subgroup, right? Just kind of why feels like a general taboo is because we understand that in broader society, right? These cultural valuations of a person's worth are just kind of, those are the default, right? And unless you have reason to believe otherwise, like you feel like you will be judged on that. And people, I think, generally don't like to be vulnerable to judgment, right?
Yeah. I've even seen studies where it says like higher, like, I read this article a while back, might have been New York Times, where like when you're wealthy in America, because you're successful financially, it makes you think you're successful and proficient in all walks of life, right? So a great example, our current president, right? And like, right, like, so I think they referenced some study where, like, I think people who are like in high income brackets, were confident that they were just correct on like every possible discipline, right? Like you guys look at those like the strength charts that jut out and spike whenever someone has expertise in an area, like how PhDs will have a single big spike, college students will have a little circle, like you guys know what I'm talking about, those things.
Yeah.
And then like, so even though a wealthy person's thing might be like here financially and here everywhere else, they think they're like that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just right, like society tells you, oh, you're great at everything because you're good at money, and then they kind of buy into that self-belief.
You're good at money. What if?
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. If nothing else, I feel like money is a proxy. And that was just the word that came to mind when I was cooking dinner today, because you had asked a prompt and I had to think about it a little bit.
Could you elaborate? I'm not sure what you mean by proxy.
It's like a
Yeah,
middleman.
I don't know. It's just like, I feel like it by itself doesn't mean anything. And I don't know. At the same time, it is also so meaningful. Like it's I
Social
don't know,
construct. Dude.
like, I don't
Money
know.
is a
I don't,
social
like I said,
construct.
I feel like my thoughts on this aren't very like concrete, but it's like obviously money is very important. Like, you know, like you go to the store and then I don't know. My parents sell like point of sale products. Like there's like the part where you like exchange money with the product. Like that is just like how important money is. Like you need a specific spot in the store where you're gonna exchange money. And then like when you're buying something online, I've been dealing with like vendors a lot, like for like grad school stuff, and like you need like formal quotes. It's like, yeah, we can be talking on the phone and all that, but I don't care what's on the phone. Like you send me a formal quote over email. Like that is like that's got to be like official. There's like a like standard like letterhead and all that. It's like this is like the important shit. This is what we like write the full
And
email
yeah,
down, right?
for any business, that's the important shit.
And so, you know, I mean, like on the one hand, yes, money is obviously so important, right? It like really, you know, it makes the world go round. But like, yeah, I also think it is a proxy for the more meaningful things in life, like my friends and my family, and you know the beautiful experiences that I have, right? Like, you know, David said about like spending money to go on trips and stuff, and you know, and I mean, there's the thought that I mentioned earlier about like Kevin like wanting to be sort of like more in control in his life, and the phrase that I dropped was that like, you know, because that's something you can't put like a price on, right? Like his sense of independence and like being able to be his own boss. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about just now, but yeah, I'm
I
also
wish-
down to talk about all of like our salaries if we think that's like a productive conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want that shit recorded though. We can
Yeah,
do
for
that
sure, for
post
sure. No, but
recording.
yeah,
Yeah,
your
we
point
I was
about
gonna say
bargaining
something.
power is interesting.
I mean,
I was,
Which
like-
is gonna say something.
I was gonna say something that like, what if like money, like the dollar or like the bill, whatever people equate money as, wasn't what people who first thought about like using something to like exchange for goods. What if they use something else, like a different way of exchanging?
Oh, like gold
like-
or silver?
No, like
No,
something
you mean
something
like
obscure,
blowjobs?
like
You mean-
like
you
handshakes or
mean-
something. Like even like
A handshake.
dirt balls. If you had 10 dirt balls, you can get this for 10 dirt balls, or 10 rocks, you can get this for 10 rocks.
I mean, I think that's
Like
just
or something even stupider, like 10 high fives.
I trade
That's
you.
20. That's 20 chickens. 10 high fives.
Yeah, like in some alien,
So-
in some
but- so
alien
I think
planet,
there's a
their farts
big-
are currency.
Like sure, people can just like farm high fives or farm dirt balls. Like I could farm dirt balls for 10 years and be the richest man in the world. If
But
dirt
see,
balls
I think
was
there's a
currency.
difference between if you did a high five and like rocks, because rocks, I'm pretty sure there's a limited amount of rocks.
Exactly. Okay, sure.
There's not a limited
So-
amount of high fives, bro. They're limitless.
That's
I
true.
don't know. I think there's an
Unless
infinite
you don't have-
amount
But
of
like,
rocks.
what about fatigue factor? Like, someone's gonna get tired of freaking high fiving all day, right? It's like anything that you put effort into
Try me.
getting. What if that was our currency?
Yeah, I think you're onto a new economic theory, dude.
That's what I'm saying. Why is a piece of paper what people need to like get things?
Can you guys imagine?
It's really not the piece of paper, though.
It is
I mean,
the piece
yeah,
of paper. Like
Well-
you can't
Oh,
get
yeah,
things
it's
without
the
money.
it's the idea behind it, though. You know, we could honestly assign it to something else, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, and I want it
All
to be
about
rocks or
this
10 dirt
represents-
balls.
Yeah, so
Yo,
But then it wouldn't
so
really change.
with
I don't
with
think anything
with the
would
gold
change.
standard, effectively it was rocks, Uche, right?
Yeah, right.
Under
Was
the
it
gold
actually?
standard, you
yeah.
what's
yeah,
gold?
yeah.
Gold is just a rock. Gold is a rock,
Metal.
right?
That's a
It's
metal.
a metal, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
it's basically a rock. It's a scarce rock.
It's an ore, right? Like,
What if it
Ore
was
is rock
limitless?
and
It's a
metal.
scarce rock.
Yeah, I think it's a rock.
Yeah, but so if it, yeah, so like the key issue here is it's scarce, so it retains value, and that's what made gold a suitable currency, right? So there's like a mechanical aspect, like certain types of things, right? Mel was just talking about the infinite number of high fives, right? That makes it a poor currency for retaining value, right? So like a currency need to fulfill certain like mechanical conditions in order to actually operate as an effective currency, which is why the Zimbabwe dollar is a joke.
Who came
right?
up with
It
this
doesn't
efficiency
retain
thing?
its value.
I hate that guy. I want
No,
it to
dude,
be
like,
infinite.
Kevin, think about Uche's world. Like, imagine we find an unreached people, and their measurement of value is based on how much someone wants something. So every
Exactly.
time two guys want to trade, like they want to barter over like a cow, they get together and they start playing patty cake.
Or like
Right,
600
and they say-
push-ups.
Yeah,
Like
they
do
start
something
exchanging.
crazy.
They start doing like the high fives over and over, and the guy that wants it the most paid the most handshakes or the most high fives for it, and he
Yup.
gets the cow.
Like they could be doing it for weeks if they had to.
So at the beginning, sure. Look, I can totally imagine a society prior to the introduction of formal currency to have worked that way. The problem is what happens in a few years. Say you won the cow, right? But then you get old, so you don't have as much stamina. And some guy just shows up and high fives you into the dirt, and then they take your cow. It's like, what the fuck? Right?
It's
Well, the cow's
over
gonna
for
be
you.
dead though, right?
Well,
The cow's
so
gonna be
that's-
eaten already.
I mean,
The cow.
cow is just one example, right? You know, cow, for example, is a perishable good.
Oh,
What
a
if it's an
younger, more
unperishable good?
agile
Like
human
your
being
house.
can always just take your.
Like, what about your house, right? Like, he just
You
shows
take
up
it
and he out high fives you, and you just
Into the
it's over,
dirt.
right? Like,
Well, no, no, at
that's
that
the
point-
problem.
Kevin,
At
at
that
that
point, you
point
have
in
to
the
have
family,
kids. You have your own kids.
yeah, you
right?
have your kids. You have your kids do the high
They
five.
pile up on the stranger until he's into the dirt. That's the
Exactly.
thing. That's
So
the
more
thing.
kids is more economic power in that system. More high five.
Well, so you know, in older agrarian societies, that really was a big deal, right? Why so many societies valued male, like, you know, children, or maybe not even so many. Why Chinese societies they valued male children, because they could high five other people into the dirt effectively, right? By actually working the fields, right? Like legit, right? Like you have a big family, right? You get a lot of people, right? Like that meant thing, right? So you know that's not a very peaceful way of kind of conducting trade, in my view, right? Just because of the volatility, like your value isn't preserved. Like you can work hard for something today, but because someone out high fives you tomorrow, right? Like your thing's just gone, right? You know, all your high fives from yesterday are just done, right? Like so
You have to
like,
agree to high five them first.
Hmm.
okay,
What
so,
if
so that
what if currency was hair, like your own hair?
Mhm.
So like if you
See you,
grew
David.
hair like faster than most people, then you'd be the richest man alive.
You, David.
Oh, bye, David.
All right, it's just stupid as hell.
Wait.
To Kevin's
Yeah.
to Kevin's point, we were watching Les Mis the other day. This is tangentially related, but like, you know, we were thinking about how. So have any of you guys seen Les Miserables? It's like on Disney Plus
Yes.
right now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're only got like halfway through because it's so long. Also, Sacha Baron Cohen in that movie is so funny. Like the Master of the House song where he's like stealing from everyone. I died on that scene.
Remember.
But yeah, I thought one part of the movie I really didn't like was I'm sorry, what's the female actress? She's very famous in the
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway, yeah. So Anne Hathaway in that movie is this like, you know, nice, dignified girl who's working to save her daughter, right? Who Hugh Jackman later recovers, right? And do you guys remember the part where she loses her job and then she has to go into prostitution to like provide for her kid, right?
Maybe. I
there
can't
might have
remember.
been a scene like that. I only remember.
Yeah,
very,
yeah. So
very
that's a
limited.
critical plot point, right? But you know, when as she was progressing toward prostitution, she basically did everything she possibly could, including letting people rip out her, like literal mutilation. They would let them rip out her teeth, shave off all her hair. You know, she basically doing everything she possibly could to sell off parts of herself before she had to go to prostitution. And her whole point then was, oh, you know, I'm going to preserve my dignity as long as I can. I'm going to stay true to my values, whoever I am, while still trying to give resources to my kid. And on the surface, you know, I feel like it seems really noble, right? And then, you know, to Kevin's point, right, like at those times and really reaching back into biblical and like pre-biblical times, in a lot of societies, if you were a woman and you were not wed and you were past a certain age, the choice between utter destitution and death and starvation and life was often just prostitution, right? Like that was like the only viable path for many women across like a lot of societies, given their social class, right? I don't know. I just felt like it was so demeaning that they had to be like, oh, prostitution should be your absolute last thing because every shred of dignity you have will be gone once you're a prostitute. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense to you guys? Like, it just felt so wrong to me that like they would say, oh, every woman who became a prostitute, they didn't resort to pulling out their teeth and shaving off their hair and doing everything they could to avoid it. Like they were just weak. Like, no, they just like that's your choice, right?
I
Yeah, but
agree.
isn't what wasn't that? Were you saying you don't think they should have done that like in the film, or?
Yeah, I disagree with the messaging in the film,
Okay.
or my interpretation of the messaging.
I mean, I think it's because there's such like a strong there's this really strong like judgmental factor, like maybe surrounding that, where like there's this societal like rule where like that's just like taboo, like, oh my gosh, if you do that, your dignity is gone. So like it could have been so, I feel like that could have been so strong at that time that it's like engraved in that character, so
Yeah.
I think like you have to balance it. I always like to look at this thing from a practical perspective, and it's possible that you are worse off overall by going into prostitution. Like, whereas before they might have paid you to mutilate your teeth, now they just mutilate you straight up, like just because they know you're a prostitute. Like, if that's kind of the situation you put yourself in, I would put prostitution perhaps as the last resort, right? But it really does depend on your situation, right? It's like I do feel you, Alan, when you say kind of like, it feels like people might be getting kind of steered in the wrong direction for like their practical well-being by some of these like dogmatic values, like just you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, I think people should try to make calculated, informed decisions, not necessarily placing those taboos at the forefront of their consideration. Like, they need to acknowledge it, like Melis was saying, in terms of like, does breaking this taboo impact me badly in the broader scheme of things? But like, it shouldn't just be a hard, fast rule. Like, okay, I just cannot do prostitution. Like, if that's what makes sense, like, I think it's what it's the hallmark of real courage is to be able to make that tough decision. It's like, hey, this is what I need to do to make things work, right? And I'm willing to go out of my way to make it work.
Yeah, there was to your point, there was an interesting podcast episode I saw or I listened to recently by Malcolm Gladwell, and he was talking about the father of modern birth control was a Catholic, which is really surprising because their whole they all hate like contraception according to their dogma, right? And so the episode was really about how he reconciled his Catholicism, which he was like very devout with, and his like creation of birth control. And a point that Malcolm Gladwell made that story is that like the people who in the Catholic Church actually like institutionally they did like a thing where they reviewed it, and most of the scholars and theologians there said, hey, it's actually different from traditional contraception, which is condoms. And so people should be allowed to use it to lift themselves out of poverty, because birth control is like one of the best ways to lift poor people out of poverty by controlling the amount that they have to provide for, et cetera, right? But then the Pope at the time stood by his principles, like traditional principles as he saw them, and he said, no, it's not acceptable. And I think that's endured to this day with that form of birth control. And so Malcolm Gladwell's point was that he let down people like in his community, the poor people, because instead of being a man of particulars, as he called them, like you said, like weighing each situation at it individually and seeing what was right for each person, as many of like the priests in the church thought they should do, he decided to stand by principle, which Malcolm Gladwell is saying is the less brave situation, or the less brave choice he made at the time.
Sounds like it was more of a man of God than a man of the people.
Yeah, in that sense, right? He was saying he should have let the particulars of people's lives outweigh his sense of principle, right? It was an interesting podcast. I'd highly recommend that one.
Yeah, certainly tangentially related to money, I'd say. At least that's sorry. I don't know.
I forgot how we even got here.
You said you were leaving at 10:15.
Yeah. I do have to go.
Okay.
So if you guys would like to continue the conversation, certainly feel free.
Where are you heading to, Ozzy? You can stop recording.
Okay.
It's been real, boys.